This is HBR News number 488. Black Hawk down, more failed assassination attempts, where we discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you're laughing at all of this winning so that you are not consumed by it. I am your host, Brian. I'm joined by Dr. Ranimer Cam. Hannah Wallen is not available as she is very sick. So let us, keep her in your thoughts because she's not going to be able to make it into the show. She has a stomach flu. So, hello, Mike. Yes. It, it's a little bit scary, to be honest, because it's like it is unknown territory we are entering. We're entering unknown waters. But for a man of my particular, let's say, personality, I find it exciting. It's like adventurous. So Mike, that's right. Mike doesn't have audio because I didn't. Hold on a second. Let me just add Mike's audio. I forgot to do that to the Talking Panda. My bad. Hold on a second. I'm a little out of sorts. And okay. So now Mike should be able to talk. Okay. You were saying about the winning?
I cannot remember what the winning was.
You said that you can't take it anymore.
Well, I'm in this weird blind spot between the black pills and the white pills because everything's going so well for America, but it's going so terribly for my own country. So I don't know where to land.
It's the yin yang.
In all of this, I'm in the gray area. Like, I'm delighted about how well everything is going for America, while everything is going so terribly for my own country, and I don't know how I'm going to get through this.
Yeah.
I hope I'm gonna land in America during its golden age, rather than ending up in a cell in a UK prison on account of having said something wrong. I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing. All I know is I'm hiccuping from being so drunk. So I'm going to let Brian talk for a while I cure my hiccups. Brian, do something.
Water. Drink water. Okay, so yeah, do that. We have a great show lined up for you guys this week. So please be sure to continue the conversations in the chat as well as the comment section. On this week's HBR News, we're going to be discussing the recent unfortunate tragedy involving the attack helicopter, and I don't mean that in a identify as kind of way, and a passenger plane. Another would-be assassin is thwarted, and the United Nations meddles in Japanese tradition with hilarious consequences, and potentially more. So stick around, it's going to be a good time, and be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. So you're probably looking at this image that I'm displaying on the screen that features a smiling woman with a smiling baby in her belly. And it says 9 minutes. Well, I learned something really interesting, and I thought I would make it the topic for the patron show. So you probably know that there's all of this talk about USAID, or as the left is calling it, USAID, which is being it's being audited, and they're looking at where the money is going. And USAID is essentially a place where you can embezzle millions of taxpayer dollars on really stupid things. And because it's taxpayer dollars, there's absolutely no reason for you to give a shit about how you spend it. Well, and it's also a one of the many ways that intelligence agencies like the CIA can perform ops on the population of our country as well as foreign countries and foreign governments as well. And one of the things that I learned about US aid or USAID is that they've invested a tremendous amount of money into gaming content, which is interesting because what I do on the side, or as well as this show, is I talk about games and culture and the importance of a healthy cultural gaming space to tell good stories and have entertainment that is good for people as opposed to essentially propaganda. And this game is a mobile game. Mobile games are one of the biggest places where USAID has invested. This is a mobile game called 9 Minutes, and this is for children, aimed at children. And it says the description of it is players experience the adventures of 9 months of pregnancy in just 9 minutes. The game aims to introduce players to the key do's and don'ts of pregnancy by presenting players with a series of life choices, physical, medical, and social, against the clock in a simple, iconic format. The player's choices determine the health and well-being of both the mother and the baby. Hopefully, step one is abort. I mean, they're obviously for that, but that's not the only thing that they do. They have other games like Worm Attack, which aims to keep girls and boys healthy by defeating the dangerous worms inside their stomachs. Young players, their teachers, and families work to rid themselves and their communities of infestation with intestinal worms in this fast-paced, fun game through the strategic use of deworming pills. And there's also one called Half the Sky. I'm not going to go into the description. I'll let you guys suss that one out. So I thought we would go into in what ways is the USAID organization using taxpayer money, and we could talk about that in the patron show. So if you guys want to join us in the patron show, you have to become a badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com/subscribe to join us, and that will get you into our Discord server where you'll be able to enjoy all of the additional content like our patron shows as well as various events. And we are also currently in running our monthly fundraiser, and you can support us by going to feedthebadger.com/support. And if you want to send a message through at any point in the video, that will essentially allow you to send longer messages, not censored messages, and you'll also make sure that we get the almost all of the support. Then send a super chow by going to feedthebadger.com/just the tip. And with all that out of the way, let us get into today's stories. All right. So I just want to say before I get into this one, this investigation is still ongoing and information may change from minute to minute. So I'm just talking about things as I know them right now, and I'm not going to make any determinations, but I do think there are many factors to consider that a lot of people might not be considering. And it's actually kind of unfortunate that Hannah couldn't make it because I guarantee you she would have a lot to say about this particular event. So, in case you guys are living under a rock, on January 29th, 2025, a tragic mid-air collision took place near Reagan National Airport involving an American Airlines regional jet from Wichita, Kansas, and a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter on a training mission for a continuity of government exercise. The incident claimed the lives of all 64 people on the plane and the 3 soldiers in the helicopter, marking it as the deadliest U.S. aviation disaster in years. The Black Hawk, piloted by Chief Warrant Officer 2 Andrew Eves and Captain Rebecca Lobach, pictured here, was possibly flying above its permitted altitude, according to preliminary NTSB findings, though this was still under investigation. Air traffic control had made attempts to coordinate the separation of the 2 aircraft, but the exact reason for this collision has not yet been determined. The crash sparked immediate speculation, with some, including President Trump, suggesting that diversity hiring practices that date back to the Obama administration might have contributed to the disaster, though these assertions they lack direct evidence at this time. The broader implications of this incident include questions about aviation safety, military training protocols, and the management of complex airspaces like Washington, D.C. The recovery of the black boxes provided hope for further insights, but at this point, the event underscored the critical need for precise coordination between civilian and military aviation operations. And since the write-up that I did, I learned there was a third person in the helicopter, which is another man. I don't have the name right now, but I can certainly dig it up. But one of the things that I thought was interesting is that during the Obama administration, there were some changes made to, let's see, I'm going to find it here. In the early 2010s, the Obama administration sought to diversify the FAA's workforce, which included air traffic controllers. This was in response to findings that suggested the FAA's hiring practices might disadvantage certain groups, particularly racial minorities and women. And they were looking to address that. Now, the FAA is the Federal Aviation Administration. In case you guys don't know, I think that you guys do. So what I'm basically getting at here is that when these policies were put in place, when these initiatives were started, we didn't have a word for it back then. This is like the early 2010s. I think it was like 2012 or something like that, when Obama was in office during his second term. And people are right now, they're trying to say, oh, you can't call this DEI because DEI didn't exist or whatever. But it did. It just wasn't called that. I mean, they're always changing terms around and playing these word games, but it was affirmative action, whatever you want to call it. Okay. These things have existed. And this is something that Obama put through. And here's one of the ways that they did it was using a biographical questionnaire. In 2013, the FAA introduced a biographical questionnaire as part of the hiring process for air traffic controllers. This questionnaire was intended to assess candidates based on a broader set of criteria beyond just their cognitive ability, aiming to include more diverse candidates. The BQ included questions about personal background, socioeconomic status, and experience, with which some critics argued could be used to favor applicants from certain backgrounds. The Obama-era FAA replaced a previous merit-based selection system with one that critics claimed prioritized diversity over pure skill or test performance. This assessment did not directly ask about race, but was said to indirectly benefit minority applicants through questions about socioeconomic background or life experiences. Now, I'm not suggesting that this was caused by that, because we don't know. But what I will say is, when you introduce anything other than a merit-based system in order to find the most qualified people, and you don't prioritize that, then you will have problems of some kind. Where the failure appears to have been in this case might not be air traffic control, although that's possible. What it seems to me, or what it seems to be, is that the Black Hawk helicopter was not at the correct altitude. And so it is likely the fault of the helicopter. When they were flying, the helicopter was in contact with air traffic control, and the air traffic control asked the helicopter crew if they saw the passenger plane or the passenger jet or whatever. And they claimed that they did. But what people are saying is that there was another plane that, because this is like a busy airport, and there was another plane that was taking off, and that the Black Hawk might have mistakenly been, thinking that that was the plane they were talking about. And so they didn't see it. But nonetheless, the lights are hard to miss. The altitude was wrong. There was clearly an error. Now, this could just be a fluke and just an unfortunate tragedy as a result of that. But I think that when Trump, because what this comes down to is that Trump had criticisms of the not merit-based system that was used to hire these people. I think that that is not a like I guess like a radical thing to say. It's not irrational to say that maybe you don't have the best people. And when you're working with extremely, sensitive equipment that has to be very precise, and you have to operate at the highest level, and it's very stressful, and it's like I couldn't do that. No one that does our show could fly a Black Hawk helicopter. Like, we're just probably not cut out for that. And that doesn't mean anything except that that's just not what I'm good for. So when he says that it's probably, DEI could be a factor, which is what he said, all of the, Democrats, activists, feminists, they all got like their panties in a twist over it. They thought, oh, this is the worst thing ever, right? How do you know? Whatever. But the truth is that it's entirely possible that even if you found like the reason for the crash, if those reasons, which could just be technical for whatever reason, there could be a problem with the equipment, it could be a problem with the communication, it could be a problem with, the controls or whatever it is. But some of those may be effects that are downstream from some affirmative action hires, some DEI hires that happened way back in Obama's time. And there are probably other effects that we either never learned about or have yet to discover that we may not find until there's another tragedy or some incident. So it's just about like, you may not, I wouldn't necessarily say that the pilot is a DEI hire, but that this could be a product of that. And the other thing that I'll say, well, obviously a bunch of children were killed in the crash, and that is absolutely devastating and terrible. But the other thing that was really strange about this is that 64 people died, by the way, on the plane, and 3 soldiers in the helicopter. The other thing I'll say about that is that the helicopter, from what I'm hearing as of now, was on a exercise, or like a training exercise, that was supposed to be rehearsing an escape. Like, let's say that, and literally they said this, that it's basically a training exercise to extract the president should he find himself in some kind of danger and in need of extraction. That was the team that was supposed to get him out. That's like, they were training for that. So that's kind of weird. I mean, that's what so anyway, I think that, yeah, so like I mentioned before, preliminary report, the Black Hawk might have been flying above its permitted altitude. It was too high. It should have been lower, I think. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. Mike, if you are still with us, what are your thoughts?
I am still with you. And
Okay.
Lauren is still with us now. So,
Oh,
Lauren, I know you're listening.
Lauren, you should also talk, because Karen's not here.
In the absence of a Hannah, we really need someone else.
Yeah, you can just talk through Mike's mic, and it'll just be the panda will be the puppet.
No, she has her own device.
Okay.
Y'all are in OBS. Y'all are not in
the
rooms in Discord.
Okay.
No, we're not. I'll have to give her the video ninja link. I can do that. Though.
Yeah, I forgot.
I can do that. Do you know how to use? You don't know how to use this.
But... It doesn't matter. That's going to take too long.
All right. Just talk through Mike's mic. Just sit next to him. Get close, guys.
I just need to think of how to talk about these things. And yes, I suppose there have been some conspiracy theories about how this must have been preordained in some way. Like, it seems unlikely that a helicopter could collide with an airplane, like pretty much anywhere. Like, the whole point of even having air traffic control is to make sure that these things don't happen, and that's just among airplanes. Like, there's a whole different air traffic control system going on when it comes to military helicopters.
I'm gonna put a poll in while you're talking, okay? I'm gonna add a poll.
And this is why people are so skeptical. Like, military helicopters are supposed to have their own air traffic control, right? That is supposed to be a whole different thing. from what goes on at airports.
Mm-hmm.
And so people have begun to wonder how the fuck this can happen with military air traffic control going on. And so people have been attributing this to malice, and I guess rightfully so, because
There
it
was,
seems
yeah, go ahead.
it seems all so improbable that a
It's
military
a
helicopter could
bit
fly into
strange.
a passenger
Yeah.
jet, and
I was gonna say that I meant to bring this up because I wasn't sure what the ranks mean, and I apologize for not doing my due diligence to find that out. But it sounded like let's see, with the people who died, the woman was higher ranked, even though she was supposedly the co-pilot, and neither and the other guy who was supposedly piloting wasn't that experienced. Final Midnight said the flight was a certification flight. The pilot was both inexperienced, about 600 hours over 5 years, and the senior ranking officer on the flight. Oh, she outranked the non-com who was certifying her. Rumors
Here's
say that
my
she was notoriously touchy. Being around her was like walking on eggshells. She was also highly politically connected. Ooh, now that's interesting.
yes. Here's my theory on this whole thing. This my tinfoil hat.
Okay, put it
So
on.
you know how electric cars can be controlled by outside
Oh
actors?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
sure.
think something like that happened here.
They were asked, people asked about whether or not somebody was actually flying the plane or the helicopter, I mean. But then
Yeah,
why would you fly it into that jet unless there was somebody on that jet they were trying to get, and they were willing to kill like 60 people, many of whom were teenage boys and girls.
yeah. Well, it could have been, it might not have been a person that they were targeting. It could have been
Mm,
something on board. It could have been a package
mm-hmm.
that didn't make it to wherever it was supposed to go. But either way, there's no way you can tell me that it was just a oops. This happened on purpose, and there was somebody either on that plane or the helicopter or both that were the real reason that this happened. You know what I mean? So, and I don't think we'll ever know. It's probably
Yeah,
going to be,
air traffic control was short staffed too, from what I'm told.
yeah.
So, and I think they were trying their best. I don't I where my suspicions lie are purely on the Black Hawk crew because they appeared to be flying at the wrong altitude.
Hmm.
And I don't think the passenger plane is responsible. I think that that the responsibility falls on the feet of the pilots of the helicopter.
I would agree with that.
That's what
I
I
saw
think.
I saw a post on Twitter that someone else reposted that apparently military helicopters are largely autonomous, and they take at least like three military operators to operate, but they can fly autonomously, and that it's apparently quite common for all three passengers slash pilots to be looking away from what the hell is going on in the viewfinder of where the fuck that military helicopter is going.
Mm-hmm.
And the account given by that tweeter was that yeah, it's apparently quite normal for military helicopters to to go astray like this on account of all three um, pilots not quite paying attention to where the fuck the thing is going, and I'm not sure. I'm
I, and
not
I, the thing
sure.
is, I think that
I'm not sure how accountable that is.
Blackhawks are
Um,
really they're pretty agile. I think, right? Like compared to a jet, like they can certainly change course and alter their altitude without too much issue. That's kind of the point of helicopters. Again, I don't know. I mean, I watch helicopters on TV and movies. I saw Airwolf, but I mean, that's what I think.
I mean,
Uh,
do you know how long autopilot has been available for
yeah, since
aeroplanes?
at least since the movie Airplane.
It's like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed. It just involves what's that thing that that uh,
Mm-hmm.
writes itself? It's the autopilot thing. It's a sort of it adjusts itself according to gravity.
Yeah.
Gyrometer.
Gyrometer. Thank you. And that's been around for like
A
like
gyroscope, is that what it is?
yeah,
Gyroscope.
a hundred. It's been around for like 100 years, and like so many technologies, if it's available to the general public, it's already been available to the government
Oh,
Yeah.
for like
Oh, for
decades
sure. For
before that.
sure.
That
Yeah.
goes for AI, it goes for autopilot, it
Yeah.
goes for whatever it is that's controlling these helicopters. And I don't want to get all fucking Terminator 2 on y'all, but you know, if we
Well, I don't want to
if we
laugh at this.
can
This is very
consider
tragic.
the idea that a Tesla can be can be driven remotely up to the Trump Tower, then we can consider the idea that a Black Hawk helicopter can be driven by. I mean, we can do it now. The government's been able to do it since 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to. I I don't want to be a big old Alex Jones about all this, but at the same time, I do because
It's
he's been
fishy.
right
Well,
about
come
so
on, how many
many
times has Alex
things.
Jones been right? I think
Uh,
that jar is pretty full by now.
and I'm not even
No,
saying I'm right. I'm saying I'm in the realm of not necessarily wrong.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, the fact that people get up in arms because Trump casts suspicion on it is like, I think that's cause enough to be like, why are you guys like not willing to accept that this could be at the very least an issue of people that are unqualified? But I'm not. I see there are some people in the chat that seem to understand more of the mechanics of this than I do. Obviously, I could even fly the helicopter in Grand Theft Auto 4. So why don't you guys just, if you have something, you can send us a super chat or a super chow, and I'll be sure to read it on air. I think that you guys probably have more to offer than me, but I wanted to cover this anyway because I do think that at the very least the meddling in the way in which the FAA hires people, regardless of like where the fault is at, I think that that is where the potential for catastrophic failure begins. It's like the small things, right? It's like hiring somebody slightly less qualified, using somebody that's less experienced, and using them for the wrong reasons. Like we need more diverse voices or whatever it is. That's how you create these problems. And again, I'm not saying it's a direct correlation because I don't know for sure, but there could be several layers or steps of small failures that led to this large failure. So anyway, send us a message if you guys have something to contribute, maybe something that I overlooked or did not bring up. And again, this is it is tragic and it is also very strange and suspicious. There's definitely avoidable stuff that could have that things that happened here that probably could have been avoided. But I want to know what you guys think.
But we won't know for another 60 years.
We may, yeah, right.
Someone only just opened the JFK files, and no one's
Yeah.
even talking about that now. We don't even know what's going on with that. So
Yeah.
maybe 60 years from now, we'll finally figure out what the fuck happened with that Black Hawk helicopter.
Yeah, maybe.
And we'll all be dead by then, so it won't even matter. Or whatever.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on to the next story. Unless Lauren, you wanted to say anything else before I do that?
Pretty good.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next story. So, yet another foiled assassination plot on the Trump administration. A man at the U.S. Capitol was arrested a week ago on Monday after confessing to police that he was armed and was planning to kill members of President Trump's administration. Before we continue, if you've previously heard about a nearly identical story, but with a woman confessing to the police about an upcoming assassination plot, you aren't misremembering things. Contradictory information on this story emerged from all sides of the mainstream media as they tripped over themselves to use the correct pronouns for this would-be assassin. To eliminate any confusion, the arrested individual's birth name is Ryan Michael English and is biologically male, but goes by Riley English and identifies as female. English was initially arrested on weapons charges after he was found to be in possession of 2 makeshift Molotov cocktails, a lighter, and a folding knife. Imagine, I'm going to go to the White House with this. Okay. English was very open about his motives and shared them freely with investigators. English, who claims to have a congenital heart defect, and not much time left to live, stated to investigators, I wonder where the heart defect came from, by the way, I wanted to do something before I go. English also claims he was inspired by the healthcare CEO murderer Luigi Mangione, stating, quote, I didn't have a plan in my mind. I felt like I had to do this. I felt like I was on a mission. Maybe I told myself to have faith and just see where this goes, and I had been thinking about this for a while because of Luigi Mangione. I pushed that away because I was thinking, like, that is so stupid, that accomplishes nothing. That poor kid just threw his life away for like a minute of vengeance, end quote. English decided to set his sights higher, hoping to assassinate President Trump's defense secretary Pete Hegseth, whom he referred to as a Nazi, or to kill Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson, who I guess he doesn't think of as a Nazi, but Nazi adjacent. English also considered firebombing the Washington, D.C. based Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank whose members authored the Project 2025 proposal, which Trump disavowed multiple times and said he has no interest in, but hell. However, as English traveled from his residence in Massachusetts to Washington, D.C., he began to second guess and question his plan. His intention shifted, and his new goal was to kill billionaire investor Scott Bessent, who was sent to be confirmed as President Trump's Treasury Secretary. According to the arrest affidavit, quote, English's thoughts were to use the small bottles of vodka to start fires and later to wrap them in rags soaked in alcohol, light them, and throw them at Bessent's feet, end quote. And should this not work, or should he get the chance, he planned on stabbing Bessent. That's why he had a pocket knife. Aside from the weapons, letters and messages were found on English's person, some of which contained pre-written apologies for his planned actions, including one in which he calculated that he may have to kill 3 or more police officers to get a clear chance to kill Bessent. The arrest affidavit also shows he was prepared to die, stating that he, quote, expressed acceptance and content with the possibility of suicide by cop, end quote. English's defense attorney, Maria Jacob, called his actions, quote, a cry for help, end quote, and further stated, quote, he was not aggressive when he approached the Capitol police officers. He never brandished any of the items as weapons and assisted police to retrieve the items on his person immediately, end quote. The prosecutors disagree with Jacob on English's state of mind, stating, quote, the criminal conduct for which he is before the court is not a momentary lapse in judgment. Rather, it was a premeditated and calculated attempt to commit violence, end quote. If convicted, English could face a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison on the unlawful possession charge and up to 5 years for the possession count. So I just wanted to say that life is stranger than fiction. And just with these two stories alone, like, I know Hollywood is, and I'm not trying to make light of this, but I know Hollywood is struggling to tell a good story. They used to draw from, you know, like things that happen in the world, or maybe like really well written books, you know, like, I don't know, like those Harrison Ford movies, like Patriot Games and stuff like that, right? And but because they would have like really weird plots, but then they seem to be something that could be real. When I hear this kind of stuff, I think this could be like a movie. Like they could make a movie with a cult of transgender assassins, which exists. And I'm in Andy. No, we covered it last week. We covered like the trans like murder cult or whatever it is, the rationalist cult that are trying to kill people. And Andy No did a follow-up video recently that, you know, sort of expanded on that. Like, this is a thing. Like, I don't know if this person's a member or maybe they're trying to join, but it seems like transgender murderers are like starting to pop up everywhere. And I'm just wondering, like, isn't that just really like ripe sort of material to adapt? So I know Hollywood would never do it because it would make their people look bad, but I think there's something there that could really be like, you know, utilized. But other than that, I mean, you know, I guess I'm glad he got caught, but I have to wonder, like, is this MK Ultra? Is that where we're at now? You
There's
know,
going to be a whole bunch of movies made about this period of history, but they're not going to be made for another 50 years.
Yeah.
You think about how many Western movies were made about Western times when they weren't particularly interesting to, well, I guess they were. The generally established American rule over the once Wild West. And you have to
Mhm.
wonder how many. Well, there have been movies made about Lincoln and Washington and Jefferson and all these sorts of things. There's obviously going to be movies made about the Trump administration, and
Well, they already made one called The Apprentice. It's I nobody watched it, but yeah.
but yet hundreds of years from now, people are going to make the futuristic equivalent of movies about Trump, and we can only hope that they're going to present anything resembling the truth.
I think they're
Or
at
if
the yeah,
yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I it's anyone with a understandable sense of anxiety worries about the truth and how they're going to portray these times. Like they're going to say, COVID really was the worst thing since the Spanish flu, and 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 the injections really saved us from this. And Trump
Mhm.
really was a dictator, and Biden really was the pioneer who tried to save us from the dictator. Now, this sounds absurd to us, but you have to wonder who's going to win the war of
Who's gonna tell the story, the history, right?
the war of attrition, the war of information, and it makes you wonder how much of what we think of historical truth is absolute bollocks.
Mhm.
And,
Most of it.
yeah, it's like Napoleon said, history is a series of lies agreed upon.
Yeah.
And I'm no fan of Napoleon. He was an absolute cunt, but he may have touched upon a true thing there. I mean, he wasn't short. It was
Mhm.
British propaganda who made everyone think he was short.
Really?
Yeah, he was 5'8", which was
Average.
tall for the time. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
he was taller than I've forgotten his
What?
name. The British guy, Nelson. Yeah.
I was
Ah.
gonna
Sorry.
say I was gonna be cheeky and say Sargon.
Carl's like my height.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, it's for anyone who's having anxiety as to what if anyone's going to remember them or their legacy. No, probably not. Everyone's probably going to remember an absolute lie about history, and
but
uh, and
that's why we should
and
make the movie about the trans cult of assassins. Like and they don't have to be people with actual gender dysphoria, because I think most of these people, they have something else, like a weird fetish, or they're autogynephiliacs or something, and they wear women's clothing. It's like Buffalo Bill, which they explained in Silence of the Lambs. Like, what is it? Hannibal Lecter says he's not transgender. He's got autogynephilia essentially, and I think a lot of these people do. And I'm not, but I also think they do a lot of drugs, and I think that there could be some MK Ultra fucking activate the Troon killer, the Troon machine, the Trumaninator, and send them after the president, our enemies. I'm serious. Like this happens too much for it to be a coincidence. Like Troon's flipping out and shooting up schools or trying to kill rich people or politicians. That is a movie plot. And the fact that Donald Trump made Mel Gibson, John Voight, and Sylvester Stallone the ambassadors to make Hollywood great again, I can guarantee you Mel Gibson's going to make a movie about MK Ultra activated Troon assassins, and it's going to be like Grindhouse, Grindhouse.
Decepticons.
Good, yeah, it's gonna be, like the Attack of the Transformers. I will go to that movie. I will. That is
Yeah.
matinee for me. Like absolute. I'm just saying. Like there is something weird going on for real. But
people will make movies about Trump for
oh yeah,
centuries to come, and we don't even know the name of the historical actors who will play that part. That it will be decided by future generations.
yeah.
Well, in the same way people are doing with Lincoln and Washington nowadays. Like I know the libs are going to go, no, we want Trump completely forgotten by history. We only want him remembered as a name, like Emmanuel Goldstein. We just want people to shake their fists and yell about the evil orange man, but not remember about his actual policies.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
that's the history we're trying to avoid, and I really hope we do overcome it.
I hope so too. Lauren, do you want to say anything about this?
No.
All right, I got some super chows. Just like to go to look up Andy No's video about the like murderous tranny cult. I'm telling you, they're like rationalists that go back to like the days of like atheism plus, and they're all just absolutely bonkers. Richard
I
Pierre,
do.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say I do think that it there really needs to be a serious investigation into this, because as long as this keeps happening, they're first off they're always going to blame straight white men, right? It's always going to be white
Yeah,
men
yeah,
who are the scapegoat for this, and well, I mean, essentially the MTFs, or yeah, MTFs, they are men, not necessarily all white, but it
yeah.
that narrative really needs to be
Well,
smashed.
no, but also a lot of them are biological females that think they're men, and I mean,
Yeah.
they don't kill as many people because women can't shoot for shit, but they do try. So sorry, but the biological reality comes out. No, 420 no scopes for trans men. So anyway, Richard Bier gives us $5 on a super chat and says, getting flashbacks of that recruiting campaign that the CIA was running, trying to get the baristas of the Rainbow Alphabet Wi-Fi password persuasion to join the agency. Again, I think that there people who are confused about their gender and their identity and stuff, especially young people, they are vulnerable to manipulation. And I think women in particular are vulnerable to propaganda as well. And there's a lot of data that bears that out. Meredith G gives us $5. Thank you, Meredith, the top G. And says HBR News 488, more of a G than Andrew Tate, who is not the top G. He is the second G. She is the top G. All right, anyway, HBR News number 48 for $5. I'm coming to the end of the Black Hawk crash. There are 4 questions. 1, what the hell was going on in the tower? I believe they were understaffed, and the guy was doing his best, but it was like one person in there, which is kind of a shame. They're trying to blame Trump for that because he cut the budget in places, but this is not that those things had not taken effect at that point. 2, what the hell was going on with the pilots in the helicopter? Yeah, I don't know, but somebody else in the chat mentioned that the woman who is I think she was the highest ranking person, she is difficult to work with. So, take that, go with that wherever you wish. 3, what was going on with the pilots in the plane? I don't know about that. And 4, who was the idiot who ordered a training exercise using night vision into an area with high amounts of ambient light and lots of air traffic? What we
Good
know,
question.
yeah, that's a good question. What we know, the one of the air traffic controls walked off that day. He probably walked off because Trump is in the White House. Oh, I'm leaving because of the orange man. There were 2 near misses with military helicopters and planes prior to the accident, and the elevation measurements were significantly off in the systems. So yes, DEI is likely an exacerbating factor. Yes, but when you have that much incompetence, it feels intentional. Right. So sometimes one thing that I think that we could also account for is that when you want to destroy something, sometimes you don't really have to actively sabotage. You can just hire unqualified people and disguise it as, we're just, trying to give these people that you've never historically given a chance. And then you just step back and let things unfold as they would. It's like,
Or just let the Clintons kill them.
yeah, or that.
In good time.
Anyway, thank you for the super Charles, Meredith, and Richard Bier. We're gonna move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Okay, so next we got. Oh, I'm already on the 3rd story, which is the last one. But my favorite. Okay, so Japan has froze funding that it provided in previously and voluntarily to a United Nations Women's Rights Panel that was calling for Japan to abolish the male-only succession law. In Japan, the imperial monarch succession is absolute agnatic, meaning that only male members of the family can inherit the imperial Japanese throne. Yes, they still have an emperor. I did not know that. I thought they had a president. So I don't know if that's sort of like the way they do it in the UK, where we have a king, but the prime minister calls the shots. I don't know. I'm not sure because I'm American, so we got our president. But anyway, the imperial monarch succession in Japan is absolute agnatic, meaning that only male members of the family can inherit the imperial Japanese throne. The funding freeze is in response to a report published by the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, or SHIDA. SHIDA urged Japan to revise the Japanese succession law in order to allow a potential female to take the imperial Japanese throne. The official imperial Japanese family is rather small compared to its European counterparts. Of the 16 members of the Japanese imperial royal family, only 4 are male. The youngest male member is Prince Hisahito, who is the current heir apparent. Japan's chief cabinet secretary, Yoshimasa Hayashi, called the report regrettable, which is a really, really polite way of saying it, and inappropriate. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Toshihiro Kitamura said that the imperial succession laws are not part of basic rights and that the male-only succession does not violate basic rights to women. So the UN overstepped as usual. The UN is and I'm not saying this, I'm not being hyperbolic, but they're like a they're like a magical cult. Like they believe in these kind of what's the word I'm looking for? They're weirdos. They're not just like a government body, or at least I'm not even sure that that's a government body. It's like a group of activists that represent different countries, and they were trying to essentially apply guilt muscle on Japan and say, hey, that thing that you guys have been doing for thousands of years, change it because women. And Japan was like, nah. So anyway, and then they took their money away. They're like, you know what? This is regrettable and inappropriate. So anyway, I don't know what you guys think about that.
It's easy to look at Japan as like the opposite of Cuba. Japan is a couple of islands of capitalism nestled in the middle of a sea of communism, such as China and Korea, particularly North Korea, but also kind of South Korea.
Yeah.
But Japan's problem isn't capitalism. Japan's problem is it did adopt some of the sensibilities of the West after it was defeated in World War II. And one of them is women are better than men. Japan and Korea, particularly South Korea, seem to have taken this idea that women are better than men, and men should aspire to be women, and they've taken this idea and gone warp speed with it. Particularly Korea, because the whole K-pop thing, where men and women should be the same thing, and they should both aspire to the fashion of women.
Is that what the K-pop thing is in Korea? Is that why those guys look like that?
I think. I mean, when you look at,
I just thought Asian guys are a little softer.
When you look at what's been happening with men and women in the West for a long time, it's been very. They like to say that they're creating equality by abolishing gender, but for the most part, they've been encouraging men to be more like women, and encouraging women to be more like women, so as to manipulate the men. And it's been much the same way in Japan and in South Korea, and it's difficult to track their progress through what we would call progressive politics, compared with our progress through what we would call progressive politics. And it's bizarre because Japan is very good at being Japanese. They don't have the immigration problems that Europe and America have had in the last few years, but they have had they have received the Western problem of gynocentrism, if you will, and I don't know how prevalent it was before they lost a war to the West. But yeah, they've really got on board with it. They really want to feminize everyone, and then get to the point where this isn't even feminizing. This is just people wearing makeup and elaborate clothes. This has nothing to do with narcissism or gynocentrism. This is just perfectly normal, and that's the way it's gone. And I guess they haven't had many wars with each other since the Korean War, and I don't know what kind of testament that is to anything. But it feels like it's going to blow up one day. Like the West has been pushing this gynocentric feminization on everyone, saying like, you're not going to have any wars as long as you're being all womanly about everything. But I mean, even ancient Europe can tell you that's not exactly the case. Even recent European history can tell you that's not the case. But yeah, the Far East has only recently been drawn into this whole women are perfect, men are evil, men should be like women, and then everything will be fine, sort of thing.
But they're kind of speed running it too.
They're going to encounter a rude awakening quite soon.
Yeah, well, they're definitely they're definitely speed running it in a couple of ways. And but that all being said, and I think that's true. Why then would the UN find it so important that they change that? And I think it's really because it's a destruction of something symbolic that is very important to them. So the historical context of this of the succession in Japan, this tradition was formalized during the Meiji period in 1889 with the Imperial household law, which was maintained in the post-World War II Constitution of 1947. But they were doing this in the Meiji period. And before that, there were instances of female empresses in ancient Japan, but contemporary law only allows male heirs from the paternal line to succeed. Under the current system, only males of the paternal line of the emperor can inherit the chrysanthemum throne. This has led to concerns about the continuity of the monarchy given the limited number of male heirs. But the other thing, too, is that the role of emperor is largely symbolic and ceremonial. They don't really have power, I guess. That is for their prime minister or president or whatever. The emperor serves as the symbol of the state and the unity of the Japanese people. This role is devoid of political power, emphasizing his position as a figurehead. He performs ceremonial duties, officiating at national ceremonies like the opening of the National Diet, which is the parliament, attending state funerals, memorial services, and other national events, presenting honors and awards, such as the Order of the Chrysanthemum or the Order of Culture. They also have an important cultural role. The emperor has responsibilities in religious ceremonies related to Shinto, particularly at the Ise Grand Shrine and during the annual New Year's greeting at the Imperial Palace. He also plays a significant role in cultural preservation, supporting traditional arts and crafts. While not involved in the actual formulation of foreign policy, the emperor often receives foreign dignitaries and ambassadors, symbolizing Japan's international relations. He might also make state visits abroad, although these are tightly controlled to avoid any perception of political involvement. So then, okay, I think I understand why Japan does it. It might be, and I don't pretend to know, but it might be in the similar sense, the reason why you guys have, a king, right? There is something about that preserves the identity of England, and I think in this case it preserves that identity of Japan as something greater than simply a country with a government. And I think the people of Japan, they take that very seriously. I think that it might be connected to their Shinto beliefs, and I think that that's why it's important to maintain as it is. It says it's something very important to the Japanese people, even if it isn't something that, like has any power on paper. There's something important about it as an identity. And I think that's what the UN wants to change. I mean, that's what they do everywhere, because the UN is basically like a satanic cabal of people that meddle in other people's business. They want to take away the identities of other countries ultimately, and they use women.
And they call it
as
democracy.
Yeah, and they call it democracy, exactly. So that's what I think. And I think that Gary Thomas says, from what I understand, Japan sees their emperor as a father figure, and they can survive anything as long as they have their emperor. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's what I'm saying. It's like an image of masculinity at its center, even if it's only symbolic. I think it does a lot for the Japanese people. And I mean, why else would the UN want to meddle in that if that person doesn't actually hold any real power other than to destroy it as a symbol? So I think my point is, fuck the UN. That's basically my point.
Agreed.
Go Japan, do what you want, right? But yeah, like, no. Gabriel says, as mentioned, the emperor is literally a descendant, I think is what you meant to say, of a Shinto sun goddess, Amaratas. Yes. Amaratas, which is the goddess of the sun, also the main character in Okami. But anyway, so yeah, that's basically that story.
I don't like the idea of letting King Charles rule the country, but it's far preferable to letting Keir Starmer rule the country. That's what I'm saying. That's
right.
what I'm saying.
Well, I think that some people are really hopeful that King Charles, I don't know, like has some kind of, I don't know what people's feelings are on him as a person.
He's not going to do shit. He's Keir Starmer in a different skin.
Oh, okay.
They're all lizard people. Fuck them. It's not going to happen.
Well, who in the royal family do you like?
Nobody.
Okay. Trump.
They're all lizard people. That's the whole fucking point.
Yeah. All right. Let me see. Yeah, I know I'm spelling it. I said it wrong. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Well, that's all the stories I got. Really. So we did good. We did this in an hour. I wonder if Hannah not being here had something to do with it.
It's difficult to make it this far without Hannah. She usually fills in a lot of the pork. No, that's mean. She
talks a lot.
She does some nice beef and some seafood as well.
There you go. All right. Well, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go into the after show and look at this article here. This is archived content because I think that USAID or USAID might be going under soon. But we're going to look at some of the stuff they had planned in the Patreon show. And maybe just talk about other stuff, like whatever is on people's minds that they want to chit chat about. I don't like to take this stuff too seriously. So, yeah, we're going to head into that now. So if you guys want to join us in the Patreon show, you have to become a Badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com. /subscribe. $5 a month will get you into the Discord server where you'll be able to go into the Discord and watch all the additional content and participate in all of the other activities that are always going on there. So hopefully I'll see you guys in the Patreon show. We can talk about this stuff further there. So anyway, with all that said, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the news show today. You'll find links to everything in the description of this video if you want to look at it yourself. I look forward to seeing your comments, and please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will see you next Tuesday.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. holy shit, you're fucked.